Okay, so HYMC is at the top of this list because it is my personal favorite in terms of trading potential throughout the rest of this week. I've started to notice that the last couple of trading sessions, we've really seen a major boom in stocks that were related to mining. Stocks are related to gold and silver and things of that nature, kind of starting to bleed into that oil and gas rally we've been seeing for so long. However, the companies below this number one here are not in any particular order. I just put HYMC at the top of my list because of preference to trading potential throughout this week. Um, However, I do have positions in MULN, CISO, and USWS. I sold out of VEON yesterday at around 50 cents, I believe. I may have sold it at 49 cents, I'm not exactly sure. But some of these other companies, as I mentioned, they're in no particular order. I just like orders with my numbers. Um, so this is in no particular order. There is no bias against any of these companies. So I would like to mention that before we move on. Okay, so before we get to the main part of our list, I would like to give a little bit of an update on what's going on in the broader market, at least from my perspective, and then we'll try to move through this a little more quickly. Alright, so before we get to the watch list, I would like to first give a little bit of an update on what's going on in the broader market. And I personally don't like to use the NASDAQ when I'm gauging the health of the broader market, being that it is so much more volatile. I also don't like to use the S&P because it is intentionally more safe. I like to use the Dow Jones because this kind of, in my perspective at least, gives a bit of a more solid scope of what is going on ultimately in the US market and actually acts as a pretty good indicator of what is to be expected in global markets as well. So this is a chart that I created starting at the beginning of this year, where we saw resistance turn into support somewhere around the 30, 31, 32,000 area. Then we seem to be in a bull market and then turns into an ascending channel. I personally thought that the fact that that horizontal line at the bottom of that ascending channel there was acting as support almost full time throughout the duration of what seemed like a bull market all the way to the stagnant period that you see there. So I kind of thought that any slight thing that could go wrong on top of everything else over the last couple of years could really send the market spiraling. It started with supply chain issues, and shortly after the supply chain issues, Russia started getting greedy and decided that they were going to go ahead and start trying to grab up all of Ukraine. So I don't think that our market is at risk of just collapsing. I personally think that the US government move to sanction Russian oil imports is something that may actually wind up boding pretty well for the US markets and possibly other Western markets as well. So I think that it's a very peculiar situation we're in. This very well could be our support region. This also could be the moment where, if the next bit of bad news, possibly a Western nation getting in a direct military conflict with Russia or something to that effect, could possibly cause our support to fall out from under us within the broader markets. USWS ran up extremely high on Tuesday, only to give back all of those gains, like a lot of these other companies did at the same time, almost right on cue. This ended the day at 0.00% net gain, so I kind of like that, being that there's a little bit more room to the upside compared to some of these other companies out there. This also did show an obvious gradual uptrend for the rest of the day, so I think that this could possibly see a pre-market dip, and then see some more upside after the market opens, like a lot of these oil and gas companies have. A lot of people pre-market or after hours, when it goes down 20 or 40%, just no big deal. They like to say, oh, it's over, but it seems like as soon as the market opens, it just seems to go back up 80 or 100%. Now, I'm not saying that this is something that you're going to want to look at as an obvious buy. None of these companies are obvious buys and are extremely risky buys in my opinion here. but sometimes it's really nice whenever you see some of these big sell-offs. It's unfortunate for some of the traders that are holding positions, but it is fortunate to know that with the current dynamics of this market, it's often seen that big losers turn into big gainers time and time again, and vice versa. And we have IMP here. IMP, I'm liking the setup on this one because it has a bit more of an obvious once resistance kind of turn into support over here after this big sell-off. So I'm really liking the setup here, and it's something that I'll be looking to try to trade at some point this week, and it is something that seems a bit favorable along with a lot of these other oil and gas stocks. MXC could by far be the lowest float oil and gas stock play of the month here. This one only has 924,000 share free float, so this one is extremely highly reactive to any sort of momentum that moves into this company. So before the oil and gas rally began, CEI was already a long-term growth potential company in my opinion. However, on Tuesday they ran up to about $2 at their high before selling off shortly after to right at $1 flat. This does show a lot of potential here, being that it showed the ability to hit $2 in the first place, also recapturing about 50% of that 50% drop there, which is a 25% recovery. So I think that this is a more solid play in my opinion. Doesn't have as low of a float as most of the other stocks on our list. This this I see as a good thing because it can be viewed as stability. However, it also can be viewed as potential for short attacks, as short sellers have much more liquidity and shares to borrow here. ENSB ran up and down all day long, just like most of the other oil and gas companies did, but this one closed at a price which is more attractive, in my opinion, compared to the closing price yesterday, as well as its pre-market and pre-opening price on Tuesday. This one shows more of an obvious trend, in my opinion, so I'll be watching this one closely as well. Now we got MULN, which is something that has been on our list for some time now, especially after this big pump and dump scenario. We started alerting it around the 110 mark. That showed a lot of volatility in that region, also showed a lot of support in that region, so we thought it was an interesting moment, which had a lot of potential. This is a company which I've actually traded several times. I tried to trade many of these peaks and dips that you see on this chart here. This is a company which has had a history of pump and dumps in the past, lots of fraudulent claims, but they do have a lot of promise this go around. I think that they could possibly deliver this time. I'm not exactly sure. Only time will tell. I'm not going to hold long enough to find out, but I do like to see potential in good companies and bad companies. I'm not sure which one this is just yet, but after the end of this wedge that you see here, it definitely did show explosive activity, especially last trading day, the last couple trading days. So I think that this really could wind up being a good scenario in the future to see more potential to the upside. CISO is a company that is, in my personal opinion, at a really good point in time to become a long-term investment opportunity rather than a trading opportunity. This has seen major highs and major lows in recent weeks, but is a fairly decent sized company and has fairly good projections in my opinion in terms of profitability, and I'm watching this one as well. I would definitely add this to your radar today. Yesterday it really showed quite a lot of bullish activity and didn't show much signs of letting up in after hours either. Alright, so VEON was another one that was on our watch list from yesterday. VEON ran up from 35 cents to right around 53 cents before it came back down to a more mid-price level, in my opinion. I'm finding that anywhere between 32 cents and 35 cents seems like a pretty good buy in this scenario. I did trade it at one point from 40 cents to about 50 cents, and then made a fairly good profit on a position that was only about $1,500. This is showing a lot of potential and a lot of momentum leading into after hours yesterday as well. All right, and lastly, we have perhaps my favorite on the list. By the time this video is uploaded, this could be 70 cents, this could be $1.10. There really is no telling with this company. This company is starting to become what I see as a favorite for the potential of this oil and gas scenario starting to bleed and seep into the mining industry. This is a favorable company in my opinion. It showed quite a lot of activity. There's a lot of people who accused me when I first called this out around 80 cents, 82 cents or something like that, that the ground was going to fall out from under it, that there was no chance of reaching $1. It didn't only reach $1, but it reached $1 four times. So there was many different points where people could have bought in it in the 70-cent range and sold it at $1 to make an easy 30% profit, all within a period of about 4 hours. So this is going to be on the top of my watch list today. I'm not exactly sure where this one will head today, but it really doesn't matter unless you are holding a position. Personally, I don't like to hold positions like this either, unless I feel like it is very sure to do so. However, this company did show a very strong uptrend all after hours, and after it sold off pretty significantly a little bit after market open. So I think that this really could show some strong momentum, being that it's barely even Wednesday, so we got a lot of time to work with.